Hello, everyone. It is the middle of summer 2023, and Jess and I we just got back from trips, and this episode is us just chatting about our summers so far and sharing about just life stuff, some business stuff, and just stuff about have I said stuff enough? About our trips and things. So I hope you enjoy. Why are you recording? You have your phone. What were you
I'm gonna
recording?
cut that out. I'm gonna put it on Instagram stories.
Oh, okay, got it. Follow Jess on Instagram. She is what's your username?
The underscore whimsical underscore teacher.
Okay, and you have a very huge following on Instagram and you're very active on there, which is
A
fun.
little bit.
I think you are. You're much more active than I am. I haven't touched Instagram in a year.
I have not been posting as much as I normally do. I just got really sick of it the last year or two, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. So do you want to talk about our vacays?
Yeah, I want to hear about yours because I feel like yours was much cooler than mine. I mean, mine was really cool, but I feel like you did a lot and I'm super eager to hear about it. I haven't heard really anything. I did watch some of your stories. I saw some pictures on Facebook. So yeah, tell us about it. And it was through a company you were kind of working. So I'm curious about that, the balance of working and traveling. And also you might want to recruit, I don't know, you might recruit people, including me, because I'm interested in book bag tours. So try and recruit me.
Well, I am a tour guide I'm a trip leader for Bookbag Tours. And it is a company where basically groups of 20 to 30 teachers get together and we go to different places all over the world. And there's several trips to choose from every summer. There's probably 10 to 20 trips you could choose. But when you go on the trip that it's going to be led by teachers for teachers. A lot of countries you go visit schools for a few days. Like it's maybe, most of the trip is sightseeing and having fun and having that camaraderie with teachers, but then we try to work in some school stuff depending on the country. Since COVID, some of the countries are like, nope, we don't know what we want. Like we don't know if we want foreign visitors in our schools right now. Like a lot of their policies have changed, but for the most part, most of the countries you get to go check out some schools, and that's definitely been one of my favorite parts. Now, this summer, I led a trip to Greece with Hello Fifth, Jill Schaefer. She has a really cool TPT store and a really amazing Instagram. And we were co-trip leaders for the first trip to Greece. Now, this is the first year that the company offered a trip to Greece. And we don't really have any school connections yet, but so many people want to go to Greece. It is like a dream destination for so many teachers that we sold out 3 trips. Like we sold out the first trip. They had to open a second trip and then they opened a third trip. Next year, they have Greece trips and a Greece cruise going to a bunch of islands next year. So Greece is I had no idea. I was interested in ancient history. And so last year, the owner of the company put me on a trip to Egypt. And then this Greece and Egypt kind of go together. They share a lot of the same ancient history because of Alexander the Great. So I guess it just kind of made sense that I would get to go to Greece the next year. I got really lucky though, because everybody wants the Greece trip. Anyway, that's the trip that I led this year, and it was amazing. I loved it. Greece is very friendly towards Americans, and it was just a really easy and amazing trip to take. And just to see some of the ancient wonders of the world and understand a completely different culture. It was really amazing. And the teachers that I went with were just some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my entire life. Some of them, they were mainly upper elementary teachers. So we had a lot of third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade teachers on the trip. A lot of the trips, I feel like there's more primary teachers in the world because the class sizes and primary grades are smaller. So I just think that there's more kindergarten, first, and second grade teachers. But for some reason on this trip, and maybe because it was the location, and a lot of people teach Greek root words, and a lot of people teach ancient history. I know in sixth grade for sure, but we had a lot of fourth, fifth, and sixth grade teachers, some third grade teachers too, but it was really cool. I feel like those are kind of my people because those are the grades I've taught the most. I've taught fourth through eighth grade the most in my 12 years now of teaching. And so I just feel like, yes, being in a new country with these teachers was really, really cool. So, did I sell you yet?
Well, now you got to tell me how much.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
how much does it cost? And how long of a trip was it?
The Greece trip, I think, is like 9 days, maybe. It's one of the shorter trips because it is a more expensive country to visit a little bit.
Mhm.
Every country is different. So some of the trips are, I think Greece is probably the shortest trip. It's like 9 days. Some of the trips are more like, 11 to 13 days. It really depends. And one thing that we do is like one, the cost of the trip does not include your airfare. So you have to get there yourself. And then once you get there, we take care of everything. Like in country transport, we pick you up from the airport, we make sure you get back to the airport, and anything we do, like we have a ton of side trips planned. And so like one thing we also do is we try to have a local tour guide with us, like almost the entire time. And that's a big cost of the trip, is having like a local tour guide, like, pick us up and take us places and teach us things. Like it's like having a personal teacher. So far, almost all of my book bag tours, the tour guide has had a PhD. So like we look for really highly qualified, highly educated tour guides that really know their stuff. I had Egyptologists, two Egyptologists in Egypt, and then we had an archaeologist with a PhD with us on this trip. So that's a little bit of the cost. The trips are between 2 and 3,000, probably a little closer to 3,000, but it does include like all of your transportation inside, your lodging. A lot of meals are included, and a lot of activities. Most of the activities are included. And then you're getting this tour guide that, I mean, so far, every country I've been to, it's just been the tour guide really enriches things for the group. So that we had a tour guide, Joan, this time, and she kind of works for Book Bag Tours, and she's just amazing. Like I say, she is an archaeologist, she has her PhD, and she just had so much information, and it was really, really, really fun. She's very serious about Greek history though. And so like we would go to these different ancient ruins, and she would see people breaking rules, and she would stop the tour and go and yell at them and
Wow.
tell them to stop because she loves the ruins so much. She loves preserving the history. And unfortunately, like when you have thousands of people going through these ancient sites, they're, if they break the rules, then they're also breaking down the ruins. Like you're not allowed to smoke, eat, climb on certain parts. And so, when she saw people breaking those rules, she would stop the tour, turn off her microphone, and she would go and yell at those people and tell them to stop. I mean, she was just really, really, really passionate about keeping the ruins that they have preserved. And so it was really heavy duty going around with her, and she was kind of like one of the highlights of the trip. So yeah. Did you have any other questions?
It sounds really fun. And I know Anthony, Whimsical Hubby, went. How did he kind of fit into the fold? Like, was he able to go on all these tours and spend time with the teachers too, or did he kind of go off and do his own thing, or how did that work? Because I'm thinking about my um Eric doesn't have a name like Whimsical Hubby does, but Amanda right now hubby. I don't know.
Eric right now.
Eric right Eric right now would love to visit Greece too. But we're really explorers. Like we like to be free and like we don't really go on tours or, like have people guiding us. We more like to like live the life of a local and like we actually don't even do touristy things. We try and find all the things and like talk to the local people to see what they say we should do, like I don't, and we try not to look like tourists. Eric's so funny. He's so sensitive. He's like, I don't want to look like a tourist. And I'll tell you about my trip a little bit more, but yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
certain countries you have to go on a tour group. Like when we went to Egypt, like Egypt is not necessarily a very safe place for
Yeah.
Americans to go by themselves. And
Mhm.
so like a part of the Egypt cost is we have 24/7 guards with us. I mean,
Wow.
they're with us all the time. And
Yeah.
so like if you wanted to go see Egypt, I highly recommend going with like you have to think about what kind of people you want to go with because really you could go tootle around by yourself, but there are some weird rules there. Like if you're going off in a group of a certain size by yourself and you're an American, you have to tell the Egyptian embassy so they can track you. I mean,
Wow.
there's a lot of like, I mean, it's heavy duty. And there are places where people are carrying machine guns. And even in Athens, Greece, they've had riots. There was people walking around with machine guns. They've had a lot of public unrest because there was a train crash recently and the public revolted against the government. I mean, there's like, you never know. Like, yes, some places you probably don't need to travel around with teachers, right? But other places you could probably use the security. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we do have times where we can wander off by ourselves, except in Egypt, we could not. And I think Kenya, it's not recommended in certain parts of Africa to go wander off by yourself either. So it really depends, where you want to go. But for
Yeah.
me, I went to New Zealand. Now, New Zealand, you could go and have a good time, but I got to go to schools for 3 days in New Zealand. And what I saw in New Zealand was life changing. Like the students had complete autonomy of their studies, and teachers could leave the room, and second, third graders are working independently on their own projects. And the kind of schools I saw, it was so inspirational and so life changing. Like I wouldn't trade that for the world. I wouldn't trade that for like being able to go off on my own. And Bookbag Tours arranges those school visits, and they arrange for you to meet with people that teach what you teach, so you could have like pen pals for your classes. You could arrange like Zoom calls and have like special projects with classrooms across the world. And so that is sort of like why, like, even if you like to go off by yourself, one, some of the countries are too dangerous to go off by yourself, and two, Bookbag Tours could hook you up with schools and teachers so you could have that kind of international connectivity in your classroom. And so I think that's why I think it's worth it. So anyway, yeah, and so Anthony came along. I paid for him. I paid for my husband to come along. My trip is paid for because I'm a trip leader, but he came along, and being a trip leader was a lot of work. I mean, there's a lot of times people were enjoying things and I was having to like, figure out schedules and dole out plane tickets and sending them to people, and making, like, we had an instance where like they forgot like three people's plane tickets in Santorini. And so I'm like, I'm contacting the owner of the company. Like, we need three extra plane tickets for these people. Right. So like it was a lot of work on my part, but Anthony came along. He just goes along with everything for the ride. And he had so much fun. He got along with all the teachers. I mean, he lives with a teacher, so he knows the lifestyle. Other people pay for their husbands to come. So there was another couple on the trip, Brooke and Steven, and it was kind of funny because we were all the same age. We're all in our 40s, right? So it was like sometimes we'd get at a table and it would be like the couples table, me, Anthony, Brooke, Steven. Like we'd have our own little table because, like, I don't know, like we just didn't fit in with some of the other groups, right? But I mean, you could find people traveling alone. You can find people traveling with their husbands. You can find people traveling. A lot of people come with their coworkers. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. He loved it. We took a side trip to London and Brussels because it was our 10-year wedding anniversary. So we went like a week early, and that was all just on my own dime. Like that was just us having a good time. 10-year anniversary. Let's go do something new together. And then we went on our Greece trip. We definitely, I think once we got to Greece, we were like, yes, we are at home. We loved it. Anyway, tell me about your travels this summer. I feel like I'm going off too much.
No, no, I think this is all really interesting, and I'm very, very interested in doing this at some point and going on a tour with you. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I think Eric would love it too. I know Eric and Anthony have gotten along the few times that they've met,
Yeah,
and
he
I
would
just love
love Eric on the trip.
yeah, and I love Anthony. He's just hilarious. And like Eric's pretty shy, but he'll like come out if people, if a more gregarious, like outgoing person is around and like hanging out. So yeah, we should definitely talk about this.
Yeah.
We were supposed to go to Pennsylvania this summer to see all of Eric's dad's family because Aria hasn't met much of Eric's dad's family. And so but the plane tickets were so insanely expensive because of like the strikes or something that were going on. I don't even know if those are still going on, like the pilots striking or something. So we didn't end up going to Pennsylvania, but I think we are next summer. So like I think we're going to do like a Pennsylvania, Boston, New York kind of thing. And summers are so hard. Like I wish that I could go on trips all summer long, but like we were talking about on Voxer, when you go on a vacation, you need a vacation after your vacation to recover, like, and I know you got a little bit sick from your vacation. I did too, actually.
Well, tell us where you went. You still haven't said yet. You said you
Oh,
were going to
oh,
go to Pennsylvania and you didn't. So where did you go instead?
so I'm from Washington State and we're both from Washington State. And I have my mom's side of the family is all in Eastern Washington, and we hadn't seen them in like 5 years. So like my cousins, their kids, my second cousins, and Aria, she's 8, and my cousins have kids that are around Aria's age. And so we got to see them and have kind of a family reunion, see my grandma, Aria's great grandma. That was just so fantastic because it's just Aria, Eric, and I all alone in the Bay Area. And sometimes we have a good community and friends that we play with and things like that, like Aria's friends. And I have some buddies and things, but it's sometimes hard, it feels like we have no family, and to be in Eastern Washington and to feel kind of like we have a big family, an extended family. It was just so nice and comforting. And then after that, Eric met up with us, like, so Ari and I went and visited the Eastern Washington family. And then Eric flew in. We hung out with my family for 4th of July. Um, the little girls. So my sister has 2 little girls, my nieces, who are Aria's age too, which is so awesome. Like Kenzie, my sister's daughter, is only 4 months older than Aria. And then Zoe is just a year and a half younger. And so they just get along really well. And we played with fireworks and stuff on the 4th of July, which was really fun. And then Eric and I took off and went to this city behind me. So we left Aria and we went on like a couple's little trip to Vancouver, BC, because Vancouver's only a couple of hours from where I grew up, on Whidbey Island, Washington. And that, oh gosh, I just, like anyone with kids, it just is so important for you as a couple to go off by yourselves. And I just don't think, like, most couples that I know, like, don't do that, and it's just so freeing. And Vancouver, I am in love with that city. It's beautiful, and it was gorgeous weather. It was perfect, like mid 70s, maybe got to 80 a few times. And it's a very safe city. to lots of tourists, so many tourists. I feel like they get a lot of money from that in their economy, tourism. Uh, there's like Stanley Park. It's a huge park with beautiful trees and trails and white sandy beaches. And then there's like the city, there's all these really cool neighborhoods that you walk around, and the food is incredible. Like no matter where you eat, it is just so high quality, just the quality of food in Vancouver. And we're foodies, so we really like going
Us
out
too.
and eating really good food. And so we did a lot of that. And I tried really hard because I can't eat gluten. I did a few times, and I also can't really drink anymore because it gives me headaches, like really bad headaches. But so I tried to really find the most healthy thing on the menu, and it was delicious. Like part of me was kind of bitter because I was like, I want to get the most unhealthy thing on the menu, but I had the most, like the best salad I have ever had in my entire life in Vancouver. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Can I tell you something kind of crazy real quick?
Yeah.
So there was a couple people on the Greece trip who were allergic to gluten, and
Mhm.
they were able to eat bread in Greece and they had no allergic reaction because in other countries they use a much lower percentage of gluten and things, and so they were able to eat like bread for the first time in like 12, 13, 14 years. It was crazy. Like the food was just so, it was also really fresh, and they don't allow GMOs, they don't allow chemicals, preservatives, none of that. And so there was all these people with food allergies, and they didn't have them eating the same food they're allergic to in America.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard
Right?
that. I've also heard from a friend of mine who has celiac that gluten is just as prevalent in Europe, and like celiac disease and gluten sensitivity is just as prevalent in Europe as it is in the United States. So I've heard kind of both sides, like, and I did eat gluten and I was fine in Vancouver. I don't know, and I'm not sure why. And part of me is like, come on, get it together, US. Like, what is wrong with us? Like, why do we keep
Yeah.
putting poison in our food?
Something
Um,
interesting. We talked about that so much in Greece because the food was so delicious and so fresh, and but they have a totally
yeah.
different mindset. Like they don't even have grocery stores there. Like you have to go to like different markets to get different kinds of food, and it's usually like really fresh. Like you can't get all your food in one place. Like if you want vegetables, you have to go to a vegetable market. If you want meat, you have to go to a meat market. If you want bread, you have to go to a baker. And it's just really different way of life, different way of living. But I think that's what's kind of cool about travel is it sort of opens your mind to how other places do things, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I try as much as possible to go to the farmer's market, to buy groceries, or like even Trader Joe's. I feel like Trader Joe's has really delicious like fish and stuff, like salmon. Oh my gosh. And like it's pretty cheap. And I don't know how that is possible, but I'm not sure how Trader Joe's does that. Anyways, yeah, so my trip was so fun, and I'm trying to think. We also saw live music. There's a lot of live music in Vancouver, and in like restaurants. We also saw a few like sad, like some sad stuff. I think there's a lot. I mean, there's places in the US too that have really huge drug problems, and homelessness, and that's always really hard to see. Did you see any of that in Greece? Homelessness or drugs being used on the streets?
Oh, a little bit, a little bit. It's definitely different than I thought it would be. Like Athens is covered in graffiti, like everywhere. You wouldn't imagine this place covered in graffiti. It's like a part of their town now.
Mhm.
So yeah, we did see a little of that. I saw more of it in Belgium, to be honest. We went to Belgium for a few days and Brussels. And you had said in one of your Voxers that you saw people shooting up. I also saw people shooting up in Brussels. on the streets and a lot of homeless areas in Brussels that I didn't run into so much in London, and I didn't at least notice in Athens. So I definitely saw that, and I don't know why that is. I've been reading about Belgium a lot because I honestly knew nothing about it before I went. And because they have three national languages and the country is divided into three parts and they each have their own government, and it's kind of an interesting place. But yeah, I did see that. Oh, it looks like we're done with our first episode.
I don't know if that vibration little beeping noise is going to come up, but we're trying to time ourselves for this episode so that it doesn't go too long because we could talk
Yeah,
for
we'll
hours
be
about
we'll
this
just
stuff.
talk for like 2 3 hours and not even notice.
It's
So but
funny.
I think this was a really fun episode just to like catch each other up on the summertime. And I feel like travel is a form of self-care, even though it's kind of stressful and I get sick every time I take a trip. I do think it's a form of self-care because the things that you learn and the way that it opens your mind, I come back a little bit changed, but I think I come back changed for the better, a little more aware of myself, of my privileges, of of the world, and of history. So I feel like I always come back a little changed, a little more knowledgeable, and kind of humble.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and my life at home, I'm always, yeah, really appreciative. I mean, I'm always grateful to be home and in my cozy little, space and all of that. But like getting out and having adventures with your family, I don't know. I feel like it bonds you too. Like it's very bonding. I feel so close, to like the family that I visited and then to Eric and Arya. And I do feel like, man, every time I go travel, I think we need to do this more. Like we really need to go on more trips. But of course, that costs money. And maybe our next episode can be about how we can make more money so we can go on more trips.
Yes, I love it. Shall we
Okay.
go now?
Yes.